Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The member for Durack has said that the Voice to Parliament referendum was divisive, a language that's parroted by all those on that side. They mean divisive in a pejorative sense, in a black and white sense, in a First Nations and non-First Nations sense. Now, obviously, Deputy Speaker, the nation divides every election day. We make a decision, we cast a ballot, and then we unite. It's no big thing to actually make a decision, especially when it comes to changing the Constitution. That should not, an idea should not be something that scares people. That think that to actually take something to the Australian people and say this is something you should consider, the fact that our birth document does not mention First Nations people is surely something all sensible people would want corrected. But the most divisive thing that I saw about this constitutionally entrenched and budgeted for process was the misinformation peddled by the member for Durack and her colleagues. Not all of her colleagues, but some of her colleagues. For example, Senator Price from the Northern Territory on referendum day was actually in my electorate of Moreton in Brisbane, the south side of Brisbane. That was on Saturday the 14th of October. She was hard at it, spreading poisonous words and misinformation at some of my local booths, standing amongst some of the poorest people in Brisbane before going off to party that night with a couple of millionaires. Unbelievable. When I think about the Yes campaign in Moreton, it makes me feel very, very proud, because people of all ages and political persuasions turned up in large numbers to take part in a grassroots, community-based campaign. And none swanned in on jets from the Northern Territory. They were all locals. Most had never door-knocked before, and most were not political. They were nervous but passionate. It was their shared values that motivated them to door-knock and to talk to strangers about why they were voting yes, because they believed in constitutional recognition for our First Nations people and for the opportunities for change that a Voice to Parliament could provide, a simple advisory body that could help solve a wicked problem. Now, obviously, the people of Australia said not yet, but we know that there is change. Change is in the wings. This group of people in Moreton, like the broader Yes campaign, were peddling hope, a positive vision for a better future, and to acknowledge and honour the 65,000-year history of our First Nations peoples. There was no dog-whistle division in Moreton. The Yes campaign brought people of all descriptions together in a very positive environment. The Albanese government is now focused on our deep and unwavering commitment to working with our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community and taking action to address entrenched inequality. Surely that's something that we can all agree on. In the months since the referendum, the Minister for Indigenous Australians had met with community members across the country, as well as the Indigenous Affairs ministers from every state and territory. And Indigenous Australians obviously want action, not more reports, and a punching down by hypocritical, short-sighted politicians looking for cheap political points. They don't want another Royal Commission into child protection, neither do the 157 stakeholders working in the child protection sector. Instead, we listened to their recommendation for the appointment of an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Children's Commissioner to work on the scourge of child abuse and ensure that every child has the right to grow up safely and healthily. They don't want another audit on Indigenous affairs spending, especially when there have been more than 20 audits since 2014. The National Indigenous Australians Agency has already begun implementing all of the Auditor-General's recommendations to ensure strong governance and accountability in programs and services, and this will be backed up by a new integrity branch. What Indigenous Australians want is action on health, action on jobs, action on education, action on housing and action on justice. The Albanese Labor government listens to First Nations communities. We are working and collaborating with them to design and implement the programs that they want and that will work. The Remote Jobs program is creating 3,000 jobs with proper wages and decent conditions over the next 3 years. We want to double the number of Indigenous rangers by up to 1,000 jobs by 2030. Our fee-free TAFE courses have attracted over 14,000 First Nations students, opening up pathways for future employment, diverse opportunities and, importantly, purpose and well-being. And $100 million is being invested in urgent work on new and existing housing and essential infrastructure in the Northern Territory homelands. Obviously, we must always put First Nations leaders at the centre for all such decisions. Under the Albanese Labor government, First Nations people will go forward.
Question is that the motion